Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Ballerina, making $9.7 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $42 million and its worldwide total to $91 million. So at the very least, worldwide at least, it surpassed the original John Wick. It is no longer the lowest grossing film in the franchise, and on the domestic side of things, it's about $1 million behind it. It'll surpass it probably by the end of the day, if we're being honest. And it has also officially surpassed the $90 million budget worldwide. That's very good, and it should get to $100 million worldwide as well. That's all fine and dandy, but the movie is still struggling, unfortunately. It took a big hit this weekend. It fell 60%. That is not good, especially after it had such a disappointing opening last weekend. Unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like the word of mouth is kicking in. Not too many people encouraging others to go check it out, and the interest just does not seem to be there. I think a lot of people love this franchise, but I'm not sure if it's big enough to create like a whole universe out of it with spin-offs of various characters and sidelining other movies, which is bad for Lionsgate when this is pretty much their big franchise right now, and considering that their CinemaCon panel this year was pretty much the John Wick panel, a bunch of announcements of spin-offs for other John Wick movies, and I'm not sure if many of those will continue, really, seeing as how this one isn't really doing so hot. So again, at the very least, it's not a flop, it's not a bomb. Again, it made back its initial production budget, but still though, the next question is if it can get to the doubling point, and I'm not sure if it's going to get there, considering that the interest just does not seem to be there with this movie, sadly. So yeah, unfortunately, it's looking like Ballerina is going to be a bit of a disappointment financially. Number 4 was Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, making $10 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $166 million and a worldwide total of $507 million. On the opposite side, we have Mission Impossible, which seemed to be bouncing back greatly. Apparently, it got a big bump on Father's Day. It seemed like this was the big Father's Day movie, people bringing their dads to go and check out to celebrate the holiday, and it's certainly reaping the rewards of that. Now it is just $6 million away domestically from surpassing Dead Reckoning, and worldwide it is roughly $60 million away from surpassing that. So I think it's safe to say this will beat Dead Reckoning. I think that was the goal for this movie, so I think we'll see that either this week or the week after, at least domestically. Worldwide, it's gonna take a while, since I think it's slowing down a bit right now, but still, it's definitely gonna get there. It got the job done. It did what it needed to do, at least in regards to surpassing that. I think still this is probably gonna end up around Rogue Nation numbers, which isn't bad for the franchise. It's an improvement, but again, I think with this being sold as the final film of the franchise, they were hoping it would at least land in between Fallout and Ghost Protocol. But again, still, this is the best they could have hoped for with this movie. Again, this movie's biggest enemy was the budget. This movie's still gonna probably lose a lot of money, so the fact that it was able to beat the even bigger disappointment that was Dead Reckoning is, in my opinion, a big win. We got to take the wins wherever we can find them with this movie, because again, budget was ballooned due to production issues, so the fact that this movie is still holding well despite being really deep into the summer is very promising sign, and the movie still continues to do very well for, well, maybe not for itself, but it's improving. I'll give it that. So yeah, another solid weekend for Mission Impossible. We'll see if it can continue to do this as we head into the summer, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's doing great. Like, again, budget, biggest enemy, but it's on the right track, I would say that. Number 3 was The Materialists, opening with $11 million this weekend domestically and $14 million worldwide. This is A24's third biggest opening ever, topping Heretic and Talk to Me, but still sits behind Hereditary and Civil War. Now, I knew this movie was coming out, but I wasn't expecting it to really perform super well. A24 hasn't had too many big openings lately, so I just felt like this was going to be another one of those that land in the bottom half, but no, it really shook up the top 5, entering the top 3, and in terms of just this chart, but also in A24's history, which is really impressive to see. It shows that the marketing really sold the movie well to the crowds, to people. They really leaned into the star power of its 3 leading stars, and it really sold it well as a romantic comedy, and a lot of people went to go check it out. And as I've always said, I'm always for these neat little surprises. They don't have to like do gangbusters on their opening weekends, but if they can open strong enough, I will commend them. I will support them. It's always nice to see these little successes here and there, and this is definitely a strong opening for this movie. It only costed $20 million to make. I'm sure it'll be able to make that back by the end of this week, maybe even in the next couple days. So that's all good said and done. However, there is something to be concerned about, and that is audience reception. While critics seem to be enjoying this movie, audiences were on the opposite side. It got a B- on CinemaScore, which is not good. Apparently, they sold the movie as a rom-com, but that's not what the actual movie is like. It's more serious, it's more dramatic, and a lot of people were not really in the mood for what the movie had to offer. Unfortunately, it's doing really well in the film community, but general audiences don't seem to be too thrilled about this. So that's very concerning. We'll see how this affects the movie's legs. I'm not sure if this is going to turn out to be the little sleeper hit the studio was hoping for, especially with the strong opening. But again, the movie still right now had a very strong opening, certainly surpassed my expectations, and that should be celebrated. They were able to get a win after many of the movies, especially this year, weren't the big wins, quote unquote big wins they were hoping for. So while things may not be looking too great down the road for this movie, at least things started off really strong, and I still gotta give credit where credit is due. This is a really impressive opening. Number 2 was Lilo and Stitch, making $15 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $366 million and its worldwide total to $858 million. So despite going up against its first major competition this weekend, it held pretty well, all things considered, just dropping 51%. Again, for a kids movie going against another really big kids movie, that ain't too shabby. It pushes its domestic total at about $15 million away from the $400 million milestone. We'll see if it can get there, and it is slowly but surely approaching the $900 million milestone worldwide. I think best case scenario, it falls in line with Moana 2 and just barely gets over that hump. I'm not sure if the movie has the interest or buzz it had on that opening weekend. It does seem to be slowing down a lot more than I thought it would, especially given the reception it had. It does seem like the word of mouth has deterred for that film. And once again, we got a bunch of kids movies coming out. We just had a big one come out this weekend, and we have another one coming out this coming weekend. So that's even more of this movie's audience going away. So that's going to affect this movie for sure. So we'll see how much more gas is left in the tank for this. I don't think it's going to have that much left, but still though, this movie has made already so much money thus far. Again, against a really modest $100 million budget, it's already the 3rd biggest Disney live action remake. I can't see the studio being upset over this. So maybe with the sequel they try to make it better for audiences, but still, with how this movie's done, I think they're satisfied with the final product. So yeah, overall, still, while it does seem to be slowing down, it does seem to be the beginning of the end of Stitch's reign. The movie still is doing really, really damn well for itself. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was How to Train Your Dragon, opening with $84 million this weekend domestically and $198 million worldwide. This is the biggest opening in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, topping the Hidden World, How to Train Your Dragon 2, and the first How to Train Your Dragon. It is the third biggest opening for a family film this year, topping Snow White and Dogman, but still sitting behind Lilo and Stitch and a Minecraft movie. It's the second biggest opening of the summer, topping Thunderbolts, Mission Impossible, and Final Destination, but once again still sitting behind Lilo and Stitch. And it is the fourth biggest opening of the year overall, topping Thunderbolts, but still sitting behind Brave New World, Lilo and Stitch, and a Minecraft movie. So while it wasn't as big as I thought it would be, I thought this had a shot at triple digit. This is still a really solid opening for this movie, especially for DreamWorks' first going for the live action remakes, choosing definitely one of their most beloved films, but certainly nothing that's on the caliber as like the Disney Renaissance or something. This is still a really solid performance. Like I said with Lilo and Stitch, I think this movie's legacy has stood the test of time. The respect and adoration for those movies has grown since the original movies came out, and many people were really looking forward to going and check this out. The marketing was really solid. They really leaned into, let's be honest, the formula of the live action remakes, but it's a formula that works, and it sold the movie really well. It also helped that there's a bunch of shiny new How to Train Your Dragon rides at that shiny new Universal theme park. It also had some tie-ins with Burger King and stuff like that. They sold the movie well. It's been a while since the last kids movie with Lilo and Stitch, so a lot of families were eager to go take their kids to see something new. And yeah, a lot of things just worked for this movie's favor, and I think it's going to continue to leg out very well as people seem to be really enjoying this movie. Critics really enjoyed it. It's in the high 70s right now. They're enjoying it all right enough, but audiences seem to be really liking this movie as well. It got an A on CinemaScore, on par with Lilo and Stitch and Dogman and Paddington, so that's all good said and done. It'll be interesting to see how this does compared to Lilo and Stitch. Obviously, I don't think it's going to make as much as that movie, but in terms of legs and word of mouth, we'll see if this is on the front-loaded side of things. We'll see if the interest dies down significantly like what's happening with Lilo and Stitch. But from what I'm seeing right now, it seems the response seems to be mostly positive. People are satisfied with what they're seeing, so that's all good said and done. It'll be interesting to see how it'll still be interesting to see how it does in the coming weeks, especially with all the big movies that are going to steal the IMAX screens. It's got a little bit of time before the onslaught of July movies, and of course this weekend we got another big kids movie that I'm sure is going to take some of this movie's audience, but I still think this is going to do really well. Again, not as much as what Lilo and Stitch has done, but certainly really solid, impressive numbers for DreamWorks' first outing into the live action remake craze that's going on right now. So yeah, really solid opening for How to Train Your Dragon, and the horizon's looking bright for this movie going forward. Not much more else to say except a really solid debut. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we have 2 new major wide releases, starting with 28 years later. That's right, folks, we went from days to weeks and now years into this post-apocalyptic world of sorts. And if I'm being honest with you, I think this movie is going to do really, really well. Horror has been on a roll as of late, especially with franchises. Obviously, Final Destination really knocked it out the park, and I don't see this one being any different. I don't think it's going to be as big as Final Destination. I think that franchise has just left a bigger impact on the cultural zeitgeist than 28 years later, but these movies still have left a substantial impact on the zeitgeist. Like with How to Train Your Dragon, the audience and adoration and appreciation for those movies has grown since they released so long ago, and the hype for this one is there for this movie. Prior to Final Destination, this was the second most watched trailer for a horror film, which is really impressive. The marketing has been really solid, been seeing a lot of stuff for it lately, and the buzz does seem to be there with this movie. I see a lot of people talking about it, getting excited to go check it out. Yeah, I think we're going to see a really solid debut for this movie. I think it's going to really impress people with its opening. And then there's Elio. This is the newest film from Pixar. It's about a boy named Elio who has a fascination with aliens and wants to go to outer space, and his wishes are granted. He gets abducted by aliens and misinterpreted as the leader of Earth, and makes friends with several of the other aliens he meets across the galaxy. If I'm being honest, despite the Pixar name, This is probably the biggest wild card of the summer. I could see this movie overperforming and underperforming. Let's get the negatives out of the way. It's an original movie, so it's a tougher sell, especially for family movies. Those don't tend to open very strong, but more on that later. The fact that it's opening on the heels of How to Train Your Dragon is concerning. There's definitely going to be some overlap with audiences for that. And while the marketing hasn't been terrible, I think they've been ramping it up a bit lately. It hasn't been anything too grand. I've seen some stuff here and there, and again, they've been ramping it up rather lately, as I've said already. Again, more on that later, but yeah, nothing too big or spectacular, and the buzz isn't quite as big as I think they're hoping for this movie. It mostly seems relegated to, like, again, the film community, animation, and Disney Pixar community, but outside of that, nothing really out in terms of, like, the general audience. I'm not seeing too many people talk about this movie. With that said, I can still see this movie overperforming. It's the first animated film in a while. The last animated film was King of Kings, and even that teetered off after Easter. So really, it's the last major animated film since Dog Man back in January, and it's going to be the only animated movie in theaters until Smurfs, so it'll stand out from the crowd, and that's still enough time for this movie to grow. The marketing has ramped up as of late. I've started seeing much more promotion for it recently, and they've even done some cross promotion with other Disney shows and movies like Lilo and Stitch, and even Phineas and Ferb. I saw them doing a little cross promotion with that, which is kind of cool. And whoever came up with the tie-in for Elio's Pizza, you deserve the biggest raise. And yeah, as I said with the original animated movies, while they don't tend to open big, they're able to leg out substantially. Obviously, with Elemental and Migration, those movies had really lackluster, or dare I say bad openings, but they were able to leg out to much higher heights than I think most people were expecting. So I could see this movie doing that as well. So yeah, big wild card. We're just gonna have to wait and see what this movie does over this weekend and throughout the summer. I could see this movie overperforming and underperforming. This is definitely just gonna be one we're just gonna have to see how it turns out. But we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that landed in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.